Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the XFL Show. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the wonderful youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. Kevin, been a little bit since we did an XFL Show. That's because we're always feeling Gucci. Always feeling a little bit Gucci. And, we still got a couple of years until kickoff. But for those listening in, it's an inside joke. That's why I had to say it, Kevin. But we're going to talk today. We left the last show saying we're going to talk about quarterback play in the XFL, how important it is, and maybe some of the names that are going to be thrown out there. But you also have to remember, the XFL is still a couple years away. So will these names even be interested to play at that time? Even if they said, yeah, I'll play now, who knows what the future holds. But we're going to talk about quarterback play, how important it is to the XFL in their, I guess they're going to call it the inaugural season again. I mean, they've already had a go-round in the new inaugural season. How important will quarterback play be for this season, Kevin? I'm going to turn it back over to you. Let's get started. Quarterback play in football, so important. I think it's extremely important for the XFL to get good quarterback play and not just say, yeah, well, whatever, we'll just get some average quarterbacks in here.
Yeah, even I'll say this, that the NFL, I mean, honestly, like last season, for example, taking two AFC teams, and I won't even go terrible, well, I'll go average with one, bad with the other. If you go with, say, the Bengals against the Colts on Thursday Night Football, let's say. It's Thursday Night Football, so you're only going to get so much of an audience to begin with. But if it's Thursday Night Football and it's I'll stay with the AFC. If it's the Chiefs against the Patriots, okay, I'll watch that. Thursday Night Football, if it's the Bengals against the Colts, it's still Thursday football. It's still the NFL. I'm sure I'll tune in at some point, but I'm not watching 3.5 hours of Andy Dalton versus whoever was the Colts quarterback last season. It's obviously going to be Luck this season, according to everyone who says Luck is, perfectly fine and ready to go. But that's my point, is that even in the NFL, how many people want to watch Andy Dalton and the Bengals play whoever and the Colts? You're getting average to bad quarterback play, so the offenses aren't going to move the ball. The defenses aren't insanely dominant, so it's not fun to watch, a Denver Broncos defense from a couple of years ago, a Seattle defense from a few years ago, a 2000 Ravens defense. Those defenses were just fun to watch because of how ridiculously good they were. But if you're getting two average to bad quarterbacks in a game, even in the NFL, I'm not going to watch. And I'm going to watch any NFL game I can, especially if it's the only NFL game on. You've got to be a pretty bad product for me to not tune in, unless I'm, busy with something insanely, something else catching my attention. But point being, if there's two good quarterbacks, and I don't even have to care about the teams. I mean, like last year, Kansas City's offense, Alex Smith, it's a fairly average, above average quarterback, but the offense was really exciting. It was interesting. It was fun to watch. Again, if you've got the Chiefs against, and it doesn't have to be Brady, but even Big Ben somewhat slumping a year ago, or what other AFC team? Derek Carr didn't have a fantastic year last year, but I'd be interested to see the Chiefs and Alex Smith in that offense against Derek Carr and what he can do with the Raiders. That's interesting to me. It's built on quarterbacks, unless you've got this, again, insane defense. But so the XFL, I mean, you can make it as somewhat entertaining and different from the NFL as you want and make a different rule change here and there to make it more interesting, like we talked about on the last show we did, Troy and I did, that you can say, okay, get into the red zone, and you automatically have to go for it on fourth down. Something like that makes it interesting once teams get in the red zone, as opposed to just, oh, well, it's 4th and 3, we're going to kick a field goal.
But that's not why people are going to tune in, Kevin.
Right.
And I think that's your point here, is these rule changes are great for watching the game, but I'm not going to tune in just be like, oh, let's see if they're going to go for it on fourth down when they get to the red zone.
Yeah.
No, you got to be intrigued about watching the game
Yep.
And then the rule changes are the way that the XFL is going to be different from the NFL. But I don't think different rules are why people are going to watch this league. It's got to be good football. And if it's not, people are not going to tune in. And the bottom line, how do you get good football? You have good quarterback play. When your quarterbacks are good, offenses are going to move. They can beat defenses. And I know I jumped in there while you were talking, and I'm going to throw this out there. I don't think you got to have Aaron Rodgers type quarterback play in the XFL.
Right.
But I think you got to have above average quarterback play, like Eli Manning type play, maybe around that level. I mean, even Andy Dalton, he's an average quarterback, but if you got a Dalton level in the XFL,
right,
that would be pretty good because Dalton can be efficient at times, but I don't think you can have any poopers out there. I think I can say that word. You just can't have poopers at quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're out there tossing the ball into the stands and throwing the ball into the ground and throwing 8 interceptions a game, who wants to watch that? But I think if you get what would be equivalent to average NFL quarterback play in the XFL, I think then you can succeed. But anything less than that, and it's going to be a total failure again in my mind, youngster.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to bring up, too, I found this a while ago. I wanted to see if I can bring it up again now that you mentioned it because it caught my attention. The standings from the 2001 season, the only XFL season, before I get into the last, probably last point on the show, I want to read off, again, remember there were 8 teams, okay, 8 teams, so you only need, 4 or 5 really competent quarterbacks, and obviously, the worst 2 or 3 teams in the league are not going to have great quarterbacks. That's fine. But in general, you're going to see decent quarterback play if you have over half your league, say 5 of the teams with decent quarterbacks. I don't think that's insane to expect or want from a football product. But when you have 8 teams,
Kevin, I'll jump in. Hold your thought. Keep holding your thought. I'm going to jump in here. I think the XFL has to have good quarterback play in every team. I don't think 4 is going to cut it. Because then you're going to be top heavy. You're going to have 4 dominant teams. I think they need to have a good quarterback on every team. And McMahon, being the sole owner of all the teams, can make that happen. Mm-hmm. You just got to go out and you've got to market and you've got to figure out. And you know what? If you're getting guys that aren't going to be in the NFL, there's quarterbacks out there. I mean, I'll throw this out there. You look at the Tommy Maddox of the XFL.
Yep.
Okay, he didn't have a great NFL career, but look what he did in the XFL. Average quarterback in the NFL. Okay, fine, but he was a bright spot in that first XFL season.
Oh, yeah.
And then you look at a guy like Kurt Warner who played in the Arena Football League and then went to the Rams. I mean, there's quarterbacks out there. You just got to find them, and you just can't settle. I mean, I really believe McMahon, when he puts his entourage together of scouting or whatever he's doing for these teams, he's got to make it a priority. I want the best quarterbacks that I can get that are not in the NFL, and maybe some of them might be in the NFL this year, and maybe they're done by then.
Yeah.
And maybe the XFL is more intriguing. But I would say, Kevin, I think every team has to have an average to above average quarterback. Like I said, you can't have any poopers. Maybe 1. Yeah. But when you start talking, if you're going to say 4, half of them, well, then you got 4 dominant teams, and then you got 4 teams that suck. To me, what are you going to watch then? It's the XFL. Am I going to tune into the good quarterback versus the pooper quarterback and watch a 52-7 game? Right. I want to see good football on both sides. And I don't think I'm off in left field on this one, Kevin. If you want to get a fan base in this league, you're going to have competition every week. You can have your occasional blow up because, guess what? This quarterback got really hot. This defense played like crap. But if you have a team that's giving up 40 points a game, only scoring 10, when they play another team, nobody's tuning in. You got to have games that are close and competitive. There's going to be the blowouts, but if you have crap teams this time around, McMahon, the viewership's going away. I think you've got to be competitive week in, week out, every game. And now I'm pointing my finger back to quarterback play. Back to your point, youngster. Sorry to jump in.
No, you're good. Tommy Maddox, perfect example. He was the MVP of the XFL. He didn't work in Denver. He was an NFL castaway. He said, okay, I'll go to the XFL, see what this new league's all about. And he topped the league in yardage and was the MVP. And then he went back to the NFL once the XFL was done and did well with the Steelers. So, I mean, there you go. Perfect example. I want to mention one quick point before I get to my last here is that, again, I pulled up the standings from the 2001 season, and the best offense in the league that year was Los Angeles. They went 7-3. They scored 235 points in 10 games. So they averaged 23 points per game. That was the best offense in the XFL, averaged 23 points a game. That's like average in the NFL. So that's not going to work.
That's because they were more worried about all the dramatics and all the theatrical things in the game. That's why. They've got to make it an offensive league. People like scoring.
Yeah.
I know I'm an old guy. I like good defense. I'm always in tune, and I really enjoy a good defensive battle, but I really think he'll miss the boat if he doesn't make it an offensive league. Now, I'm not saying make it like the Arena Football League because I think that's just too much.
Yep.
But I think when you're looking at how you're going to lay this out, you've got to have every team average 23 points, Kevin. Fans like scoring. And don't get me wrong, fans like me, I like good defense. But you can have scoring, and then you can have a good defense. For example, when the Green Bay Packers are clicking, and, of course, that's my team, and Aaron Rodgers is carving you up and down the field, and it's still a close game because the Packers' defense is terrible. Maybe it's 28-24, and Aaron Rodgers isn't on the field, and I hate to say this, but all of a sudden your defense steps up and makes an interception, which he doesn't throw many. To me, that's excitement because a guy like Aaron Rodgers is not careless with the ball, but all of a sudden your good defense is getting carved up by a good quarterback, makes a play. That to me is exciting, and that's what I want to see in the XFL.
No, for sure. My last thing with this is second best offense, 213 points. That's 21 a game. Third, there's no other team in the XFL that scored at least 20 points a game. That's terrible. 2 out of 8 teams scored 20 points a game. No one better than 23. That's atrocious. 18 points a game for this team, 16 for that team, 16 for that team, 15 for this team, 13 for the worst 2 teams. That's terrible. That's not going to work. So I wanted to throw that out there. If you replicate that, your league's done. There's no other way about it. My last point that I wanted to mention, too, again, with quarterback play, Tommy Maddox, league MVP, can play in the NFL, obviously. That's great. He was the MVP, so he was the outlier. But Mike Pawlowski of San Francisco had one of those top 2 offenses. That was one of the quarterbacks, Mike Pawlowski. Who's that? Okay, again, averaging 21.
It's Mike Pawlowski.
Yeah, it's Mike Pawlowski. The only other, and I wanted to mention this too, the third best quarterback, so to say, in the XFL, original XFL, Jim Druckenmiller. He was the only other quarterback in the XFL that year to go the entire season without getting benched or getting hurt. You had 3 quarterbacks that were out there for all 10 games. That's terrible. You're especially not if every single team, let's say one team has a quarterback go out with an injury, that's fine. But you only have 3 teams with decent enough quarterback play to not get benched. That's again, it's just not going to work. It's not going to work. So when Mike Pawlowski is your second best, representation of the XFL, it's not going to work. It just won't. Other quarterback names, Casey Weldon, Kevin McDougal, Jeff Brom, Troy, Purdue's head coach now, played for Orlando. in the XFL. He was a successful college quarterback, and I guess that's my last
I believe
thing.
he had a stint with Green Bay, I believe, for
Did he?
maybe a year. Maybe a year. Maybe he was the third quarterback, or maybe he was in camp and got cut. And again, these are the things. It's not like picking up waste, because in the NFL they're looking for a certain thing in a quarterback, and there's good quarterback play. Not great quarterback play, but that's what teams are looking for, great quarterback play in the NFL, right? And if you're not great, you're not going to make a team. But there's NFL teams that have crappy quarterbacks. But there are some teams that are going to have an excess of good competition in training camp, and then you just got to figure out what are the guys that can really wing the ball. And I don't mean careless with it, and I don't need showboaters. I need guys that can throw, guys that can play the quarterback position. And I think the way that the college game has changed since 2001 to now, Kevin, I think McMahon's going to have much better luck landing quarterbacks because of the way that the college game is played. We've talked about this. Everybody's high on Baker Mayfield this, Baker Mayfield this. We've considered him a great college quarterback. He's going to get a go-around in the NFL. I'm not saying he's going to be in the XFL when it kicks off. But I'm not as high on this kid as everybody else is. Everybody was, high on a lot of these quarterbacks. Tim Tebow, for example, we mentioned that. Apparently he doesn't want anything to do with the XFL, but I haven't heard anything else. But you got to find those guys that are great college quarterbacks or good college quarterbacks that run a system in college that's just not going to work in the NFL. And I'm going to tell you what, there's a lot of schools, a lot of colleges that are exactly like that have good quarterbacks, but when their system and their talent try to equate to the NFL, it just doesn't work. And I think that's where they've got to go. And you got to start looking, I would start looking now. Where are these freshman or sophomore quarterbacks in these programs that are going to be seniors that maybe will get invited to the combine, maybe will be a street free agent in the NFL? You need to start scouting now, looking on rosters of college teams now for those freshmen or sophomores that are out there that could be impactful in the XFL when it kicks off. It's all I've got, youngster.
No, I agree 100%. There are tons of throw-it all over the field college offenses now, those Hawaii offenses, those Oregon State offenses, the Chip Kelly offenses outside of Marcus Mariota. You didn't have great quarterback play in terms of NFL level going through Chip Kelly's system necessarily. Those are still guys who can throw it up and down the field and run and be exciting and make plays. We've got like 2 minutes left on the show if we want to keep it within 20. So I'll say that there are a ton of those throw it all over the field Hawaii quarterbacks that throw it for 5,000 yards in a season, and it just doesn't work in the NFL. That's fine, but they're obviously capable of throwing it for 400 yards a game. They can do it. So you can have competent quarterback play. It doesn't have to be great NFL quarterback play, but guys like Tommy Maddox, guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who were backups in the NFL for a long time, there are a number of those guys, and then you've got a number of those Oregon State quarterbacks that throw it for 400 yards a game in the Pac-12 or the Big 12, and it's like these guys can throw. They're just not built for NFL play and dissecting defenses and the film study and all that.
Or they don't have the intangibles, Kevin. They're not 6'2". They're maybe 6 foot. They run a 4.9 40. They don't run as fast as the other guy. And excuse me, that's enough to not make you get drafted in the NFL.
Yeah.
When you're not tall enough or you're not fast enough, that can be enough not to get drafted because draft picks are so valuable. And so you've mentioned it. I think we've nailed this show, Kevin. What else you got?
That's it. I'm done. Scout now. Scout those college quarterbacks throwing it all over the field that may not make it in the NFL. You've got some playmakers in college. No question about it.
Yep. Are you feeling Gucci?
I'm always feeling Gucci, Troy.
The youngsters feeling Gucci. We're feeling Gucci about the XFL, folks. Hope you enjoyed the show. We're not going to have a long hiatus next time. We're going to get back at you next week. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about next week, Kevin. We'll figure something out, though. But follow us on Twitter, @KidCunny, KIDCUNI is the youngster. I am the old man. Find me at TroyRobert967. Have a good day, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.